So that was Sor study number 22 from Sor's Op.60, and you probably already have the sheet music, but if you don't, I do have an edition of all 25 etudes in Op.60, so there's a link for that in the description. But of course, follow the lesson for free. There's lots of things to talk about with this particular study. So we're getting closer to the end of the study, so the level is going up a little bit. Like some of the more advanced studies in this collection, it's not that anything is particularly difficult, but once you start bringing the tempo up, you just need to know it quite well in order to accomplish it accurately. Now, this particular study has quite a few things to discuss in terms of making an addition, because the original publication by Sor has a number of inconsistencies. But first, let's just talk about the slurs and glissandos. So, in the original publication, Sor uses the same symbol for slurs or glissando. So slurs in guitar lingo is hammer-ons and pull-offs, but it's not always possible in this piece. So those are fine. Those are all slurs. But that's a glissando. Now you might be able to do it like that, but that's not always going to be the case. So you tend to use a combination of slurs and glissandos to make it sound, those two figures can sound similarly legato anyhow. So you're kind of mixing and mashing those together, although it's always very clear in my edition, because if it uses the fourth finger to get from here to here, obviously it's a glissando and not a slur. So I've kept just the slur markings, but it's pretty obvious when you do one or the other. So you're going to accomplish all of those slurs with a combination of hammer-ons, pull-offs, or glissandos. Now, when you're doing the glissandos, try not to get too many of the individual pitches between the two primary notes. Try to progress right to your point and get some sustain out of the arrival note. So it just seems like although you've kind of glissandos up there, you're not emphasizing, a whole bunch of notes in between. So just right to your destination point, and, even a little bit of vibrato might be nice. Now, in Sor's original publication, the slurs are quite inconsistent. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not there, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. So in some editions, like the David Grimes edition, he just takes out all of the slurs. His edition of the complete works of Sor, in this piece, he publishes it with no slur markings whatsoever. So that's one solution to the issue of inconsistencies in the original, is just to remove all of them. But I really didn't want to do that because I think the slurs are an integral part of this study. So I've kept them. Now, another option that editors can do, like I've done, is add slurs for certain sections and remove them for other ones. And it makes a lot of sense in this piece. So from bar 1 all the way to bar 16, I use the slurs, and as they're indicated in the original, and I'm consistent. I use them pretty much the whole time. But then from bar 17 all the way to bar 24, I remove the slurs because they're very inconsistent in the original, and it makes sense in that section. Because it jumps strings sometimes, especially, to just remove them for that section. And then from 24, I start using slurs again all the way until around bar 40. And then from 40 to the end, it makes quite a bit of sense to just do no slurs there. So I've decided to make sections where I add the slurs and glissandos and sections where there clearly aren't. And that's my way of making sense of the original publication. You can take a look at the original on, IMSLP. It's all over the place, the original. So you can take a look at that, but really you have to make some kind of decision. I think you should use them, especially where Sor definitely indicates them. So that was my solution. But this is the one study in the collection where the inconsistencies are so large that an editor has to make some kind of choice, and those are the choices that I've made. I don't have too much else to say. There's a melody, so you can practice it on its own. And that's your emphasis, of course. Don't bring out the other material too much. You want to bring that melody out of the texture as much as possible throughout the entire piece. So definitely melody-based and oriented, so practice that on its own. Before I do a walk through the piece, let's just talk about right-hand fingering really quickly. At the beginning, I do start with A, and then I, M, but then I switch to P, and I, and A. So A, P, and then I'm pretty much using my A finger on the top string and my I on the inner string. So I just do that switch, and so there's a few places just, where you have to do that switch again. So like at bar 9, you start out with IM, but I switch to P right away. It just feels better in the right hand to me. And also the bass line starts getting lower in some places, so it makes sense to play it with the thumb. When I get to bar 17, my fingering will go A, P, I, M, A, P, I, M, A, P, I, M, A, P, I. So always starting each quarter note group with the A finger. And just avoiding repeating the A finger on that top note. You could do it depending on your tempo, but as I got a little bit faster with the tempo, I found that using M-A just felt a lot more natural and smooth. And then there's just a section at the end for right-hand fingering, which we'll discuss when we get there. So let's just begin. Discuss a little bit of barre there. I like to sweeten the second time I introduce that with a little bit of vibrato. It's so much easier at slow speeds, but at faster speeds, the accuracy of your glissandos becomes an issue. So here's a little bit of a weird spot. 4, 1, I use 3. That way you can slide down and use 1, 2 here. So I'll start from bar 13 again. nothing complicated about that, but you just have to know it fairly well in order to execute it accurately. I found that once I started raising the tempo, if I was going to try to record it, I was making lots of little mistakes, little tiny errors. And so knowing it really well was very important. By the way, in bar 15 there, I go thumb, thumb, I-A, thumb, I-M, thumb. So I just do a double thumb there. Just like a sweep thumb, rest stroke, free stroke. And then bar 17. To be a little bit quick with your shifts, because they're happening within the space of a 16th note. So you have to be a little bit precise. Can't talk and play. And this is kind of a repeated section, so I'm just going to jump ahead to bar 33. This is also a repeated section, but it does break off and do something new. Start building a little bit. Just remember here to keep 1 and 3 down. Let 4 do the change. So when I get to here, I actually ended up going I M I P I M A M I M I P. You don't have to do that. It really depends on your tempo. I wasn't sure how fast I was going to bring the tempo up, so I didn't want to do a ton of repeated thumbs. But in retrospect, you can't. It's pretty tough to bring the speed much higher than 80 clicks. So you could just repeat the thumb a lot. I decided I kind of felt like using my I and M's on those lower basses made the return to the low E string more natural. But some of you might find that a little bit of an issue with accuracy. It's good practice, but not everyone's comfortable kind of like navigating over the strings like that. So feel free to just repeat the thumb on the lower strings if you wish. But that's how I did, is just use a lot of I, M, I, thumb, I, M, A, M, I, M, I, thumb, just to avoid a lot of repeated fingers. But it's up to you. I think most students won't play this piece too fast. I know it's marked Allegro moderato, but really that's pretty impractical in this piece. It's all over the place. It's lots of navigation of the fretboard, so you have to know it really well. And also it's quite a sweet melody, so you don't want to take it too quick. But I did find that my initial tempo was quite slow, and once I really practiced the piece a little bit more and just forced myself up a little bit with the metronome, I did end up liking how the faster tempo made the melody just a little bit smoother and more connected, because you just got more sustain out of the guitar at a higher tempo. So I ended up raising it up to around 72 on the metronome. So I hope you enjoy that, and then we're on to number 23 next, which is a mind bender.